Since I was 15 years old, I've had a burning desire to start a business, always thinking of idea after idea. At 19, I found an idea that worked, and ever since poured all my time and effort into it to reach success. Join me on my journey to the top, where I interview business experts, marketing wizards, and the successful people of the world to discover how to make it in business and life as a young person eager to succeed. My name's Louis Adkins, and this is Young and Successful. Right, hello Samuel. How are you doing? You okay?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Have you had a good day so far?
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Yeah, it's been it was quiet at the start, so I managed to have a bit of time to go and have a dog walk. But then after that, I was spending my actual afternoons scrapping around. Like, I know I've got this call with you. I really wanted to get everything sorted before that. So yeah, it's been
Yeah,
good. It's been busy.
good. I said so far, but then it's literally the end of the day. So, have you had a good day today? Is what I should have said, really.
Yeah. But to be fair, it feels like the days don't end sometimes. It's almost
Yeah.
like 5 o'clock's not finished time for me.
Yeah. So do you mind just introducing yourself quickly to
Yeah,
everybody?
of course. Of course, yeah. So my name's Samuel Roy. I set up SJR Mortgages in September 2023, so about 6, 7 months ago now.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's been growing since then. Prior to that, I've had about 5 years in experience advising mortgages and protection. And yeah, it's just focusing at the moment on building up my client base, but specifically building that in the law professional sector. So
Okay,
I'm
interesting.
focusing on barristers, solicitors, lawyers, just because there's kind of like more specific mortgages that you can help with them.
Interesting. And so you've just started this recently. My first question is, so why did you just start in the last couple of months? Why did you just start now? Why not before then?
Yeah, so it's a great question because there was a couple of people that were self-employed that were like, you need to just do it now, do it straight away.
Okay.
And then there was also the other side of people that are probably a little bit more risk adverse that were saying, I don't know why anyone would ever go self-employed. Like, why would you want that risk?
Hmm.
So I was that person in the middle that thought I'm going to start employed with the intention to go and set up a company on my own if I feel it's the right path for me. So I basically spent the first 2 or 3 years in mortgage advice, learning the ropes, um, learning a lot off good managers at the time and good employees as well, but like good colleagues at the time. So
Hmm.
with all that learning, I was like, right now, it's either now or never in a sense, because where I work, there's like steps up and stuff where I was working towards. And I could have very easily gone, yeah, I'll do this and I'll head towards management. But that itch where it's like if you don't do it now you probably never will was like too much for me to go. I can't
Yeah.
say no.
And did you have that, like, the itch that you wanted to start your own thing?
Yeah, so from when I was like, if I go back to like my teens,
Mm.
I was one of those people that was like, right, I was really strict with my finances. So I always used to have like a little red book. When I did my paper round, I'd be putting in it to the penny. Any tips I got, all of those things were in there. But then I always said to myself, I've never ever want to be in debt. Like that's my big thing. I was like, right, I want to be in something sports related potentially, but also I never want to be in debt. So at that point, I said I'm not going to go to university. I'm going to study like personal training. And then I ended up going to a college, did a sports college, and at that point, the college were like, "You need to go to university now." And I spoke to some friends; they'd been uni, and they were like, "You need to do it as well." And I was like easily influenced at that age, and thought, "Okay." Despite the fact I never ever want to be in debt, let's just do it. And did my university degree, learned loads from that, but then I still had in the back of my mind, I want to have my own business one day so that I don't really need to worry about like debts in the future. So it's always been that's been my big driver for why I wanted a business at the time.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny that you say that because I've gone through stages where, like, I've gone through periods where it's like I'm gonna never have debt, and then I've gone through stages where it's like, oh, it's okay to, like, have sometimes I've bought courses in, like, my student overdraft to learn a bit so I can earn a bit more money.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
go on.
It's I was gonna say it's absolutely hilarious how like I've gone from never ever wanting to be in debt to putting people in debt for like a living.
Yeah,
Now
that
it's
is
literally
quite.
what I do. And at the same point, I've learned that like it's technically if it's like managed well, it can
Mhm.
actually be a real big benefit. So like in your scenario, you've bought some books or you've paid for courses with that overdraft, but I suppose the outcome you've got off the back of that's probably been a good return of investment.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. It was like one of those things where because obviously I'm still a student and sometimes I can't like I just don't have money. One month I don't have money there, so I just get a course, and then the next month when it works. But I never like try and do like I never like buy go out clubbing on debt or something. um,
Yeah, yeah.
that's just a bit
It's
of
like
me.
sensible spending by the
Yeah,
sounds of
yeah,
it
yeah,
for a uni student. That's it's very good going.
yeah. Okay, so you went to university and you were doing was it personal training then?
Yeah, so I did sport and exercise science at
Okay,
uni.
cool.
Um, Following on from college, it was like right, I want obviously want to stay in the same sector. So I went into sports science knowing that I could either do something like personal training for celebrities or
Yeah.
like elite athletes. And that was my mindset at that time. And it was still I know I could do this self-employed. So I was thinking I could potentially go down that route. And then once I'd finished the qualification, got to the end of my degree, I suppose like the opposite to what you're doing at the moment, I was like, right, now what do I do? And I ended up doing some shadowing for physiotherapy.
Yeah.
And as I was doing that, I worked in finance. I went into Nationwide Building Society,
All right. Okay.
and it was literally like within the first month, I was like, I know this is what I want to do going forward now.
Hey, it's Louis. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I have a quick favour to ask, which is if you're enjoying the episode, could you just take a couple of seconds to leave a review on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts? It really helps the show get out to as many people as possible so more young people can learn about how to reach success. So if you could, just take a few seconds to leave a review. I would really, really appreciate it. That's it. Thank you very much, and let's get back to the episode.
Just completely like changed my
Oh, you
perception
just
on what I wanted
knew?
to do. Yeah, really quickly. Like I thought, oh, it's going to be a boring job. It's like a better salary than when I was working at Aldi supermarkets. So I was like, okay, it's going to be a little bit better pay, but I'm at the like front desk, just greeting people to come in and kind of advising on current accounts and stuff. And I thought, sounds awful. That does not sound like the PT kind of stuff that I wanted to do.
Yeah, yeah.
But then as soon as you start having like deep conversations with people, and it's not all about the current account and the savings account, it's actually about the individual and like what their long-term plans are and building up a bit of a picture as to what their plans are and how I can then put that into place for them. It was then within like that first month where I was like, I definitely want to do this for as long as I'm working.
And was it just the case of like as you started doing it, it was just like a click moment, like this is what I really like to do?
Yeah, like rewinding back, because it's probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, it was probably the point at which I actually had a one-to-one with the manager at the time. And I've never had anything explained so like clearly, which is really helpful sometimes. She'd got like a piece of paper and she got a pen and she basically said, right, there's two different routes with Nationwide where it was. And the first route is management. So management could potentially be branch manager, area manager, and so on. The second route is a specialist role. And when you're a specialist, you could be a specialist mortgage advisor, you could be a independent financial advisor. So that's what would happen if you would specialize in something. So she was like, first month in, she was like, what would your choice be? What would you want to go into? And it took about half a second for me to go specialist, like 100% specialist, because I really didn't want to manage anyone. Because when you're like 19 years old, 20 years old, or how, no, I'd have been 21, 22. Even at that age, you're like, oh, I definitely feel like I'm too young to be
Yeah,
able to tell anyone else what to do.
I've thought that about myself right now. Like, I would find it sometimes a bit, I don't know, it's just like, especially because some of those people will be older than you, right? And
Yeah.
so I would find it to be a bit strange that I'm telling someone older than me what to do, but it does happen. But yeah, I know what you mean.
I think it's having that confidence in yourself, isn't it? Once you've got the confidence and the
Mhm.
ability in your ability, I think at that point you can probably manage people regardless of their age or
Yeah,
status at that point.
that's a good point actually. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think someone once told me if you know 10% more than the person you're talking to, you're an expert to them.
Yeah.
So I don't really know where the 10% came from, but I suppose if you're like, say for example, you're sitting there in marketing and there's someone else that's maybe not got a clue about it, like me compared to you, for example, you'd be the expert to go to compared to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And likewise, if maybe we were talking about mortgages, it would be the same the other way around.
Yeah, yeah. And then I suppose if I were to sit in a room with like some like Russell Brunson or like they're the expert to me and I'm like they know so much about marketing.
Yeah, and regardless of, I mean, how old do you reckon he is? He's in his like 40s now, probably.
Yeah, I think he's in his 40s, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like big time CEOs in their like 50s, 60s that would probably sit there and all listening to him because he's obviously got.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm reading his book that you recommended me actually, the
Those ones
.com
there.
Secrets. Yeah, bit too far away to read, but I'm reading it all on a Kindle, which is
Oh,
helpful,
that's why you
but
won't
not
recognize
help.
the book covers because the book covers are really
No,
nice. They're like the
yeah, not a
ones with
clue.
the little colors on the top of them.
Ah, that's all his, are they?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the downside, there's so many benefits to the Kindle because I've traveled a lot in London on the tube.
Hmm.
It's like the perfect place to do a bit of reading and fill the time. But then, when you want to take notes and something, you're like, if I do that on this Kindle, it's probably going to ruin it within about two
Oh,
seconds.
right. Yeah, yeah. I take that. I
So,
highlight my books.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
you
think
can
it's
see
good
which one.
it's good to kind of refer back to then, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But so going back, you were at Nationwide and you had these two paths and you decided specialist. Do you think when I'm hearing you say, do you think that came from like when you were looking at being a PT, you wanted to be a specialist for elite athletes? Do you think that may be why you thought, oh, specialist mortgage advisor, like the specialist role?
Actually, a really good point. I think at the time I was so much thinking I don't want to be a manager that I hadn't really processed that. But now you've mentioned it, it's a good point because even now I'm doing mortgages, but I still want to like specialize more and more. So I'm like,
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
how can I specialize in mortgages if I focus on law professionals?
Hmm.
Then I can become the specialist or the expert in that category. So yeah, it's probably a good point. It might be where it all stems from.
Yeah, the reason like I think this is a really important conversation is because I think a lot of young people, I mean, all my friends that I speak to when I'm at uni, they all, if you ask any young person what they want to do, the majority of people will say, I have no idea what I want to do. And I think I always go with the outlook that it's kind of like because I think some people sit there and they kind of sit there and they're like, oh, I just want to find my passion, like what's the thing? And I think it's kind of like when you said it, it reminded me of it. It's like you just do things and it might not seem like you're going to enjoy that much, but then when you're in it, you then realize this is it. This is the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens from there. I think you're absolutely right. It's trial and error, isn't it? Sometimes, like
Yeah.
you don't like there's people that are probably sitting there in their 30s, 40s in a job, but they still don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I've got some family members that would actually say that to me now, and they're like in their 50s and probably getting 5, 10 years away from retirement, and they're still saying to me, "Oh, I don't know what to do with my career."
Right.
So it's hard to ever know. Some people get it, and then they're like, "Brilliant! I can hone in on this." Other people, I suppose, it maybe takes a little bit of time to
Hmm.
to try a few different things and give it a go. But I think the hard thing for a lot of people that are like employed is it's really like I've experienced. It's really easy just to get comfortable in the job, and then as soon as you're in that, it's like bad analogy maybe, but like a relationship you don't want to be in. It's like hard to
Yeah,
then
yeah.
break it off and then
No,
go to a new one.
I understand what you mean. That like you get comfortable and you've got the money coming in every single month, and almost to take the step becomes harder. And then I suppose as you get older as well, you get more responsibilities that then become harder as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think you're right. The responsibilities and stuff were probably one of the big reasons why I managed to do what I'm doing because not got any children aside from a dog. My partner's really like open to me trying whatever I want. So, and she was doing a transition at the time as well. So, Olivia's gone from marketing into fitness, which
Ah,
funnily enough. But so she'd gone from an employed role into self-employed, and similar to me, we kind of did it at the same time. So
oh, that's cool though.
both took the risk.
Yeah. Um, so do you think that's because I know with like so like my girlfriend, for example, like I find her very supportive with what I'm doing. Like, and I think that's quite important to have someone. It might not have to be like a girlfriend, it might be like your parents or just a family member. But do you think when you're going to be self-employed or you're going to start your own thing, that having just that one person that's kind of maybe even doing it with you do you think that helped you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's like having a sounding board because the one big benefit and not benefit, but the one big benefit to being employed is that regardless, you've kind of got to get in there at 8:30 or 9 o'clock when you start, and then you've got to finish when you finish. So
Hmm.
it's a benefit in the sense it gives you like structure. But someone like me, where I sometimes I like to go gym in the morning, and therefore I might, if the gym opens late, for example, if it's not a 24-hour gym, then I might not be able to meet that 8:30 start point. But then I'll happily work until 9:30 p.m. So the structure changes compared to how it was when I was employed. The big difference that I had to get used to is the motivation levels. So sometimes when there's not like a huge influx of leads coming through, because you like when I just started out, um, it's demoralizing at that point, and then it's like, uh, where's the motivation to actually kind of get going?
Yeah.
So having that person just to be like, okay, let's sit down and like even if we just sat down and be like, okay, what have you done yesterday? What have you done so far today? What do you need to do? It's just like little things like that that make a real big difference.
Definitely talking like about the I think once you talk about like the little problems that are like weighing you down, you realize that that's what they like really in the grand scheme of things, they are little problems and they do have like fixes. Because
Yeah.
I used to when I was like last year when I was still trying to get my first client, I was just like getting to the point where it'd been like months, and I was just getting to the point where this is like so hard. But then when I was speaking to, and I'm fortunate enough to have quite a few people who own their own businesses around me, and when I was speaking to them, it's like, yeah, but the first client's always the hardest one. And like, what are you doing every day? Okay, you're doing this, and they were like, do you think if you carry on doing this for a long time, you're never going to get a client? I was like, well, no, I'll probably get one client. And they were like, well, there you go, great. So you just got to keep
There
doing
you
it.
go. Yeah.
And then
That's the thing, it's consistency, isn't it? Like I listen to a lot of I think you spoke to Ash Borland as well, like as a mortgage advisor, like he's one of those people that just pops up everywhere, but in a good sense. So I'm always looking at and listening to some of his things, and a couple of points that he makes is about consistency, and like you just need to trust the process in a sense and just continue to do what you're doing, and then like the scenario you've had, you just got to trust in yourself, keep doing it, speak to those people at the sounding board, and then eventually it will get there. And it's similar for me at the moment. It's like I've gone from mortgage advice for anyone to now really want to focus on that specialist subject. But how many people do I know in the law firm, in law firms at the moment? About two. And both of them already have a mortgage for a bit of time. So it's like, how am I going to get the ball rolling? And at the moment, I'm in that stage where it's like, let's put the plans in place and try and eventually, in a few months, hopefully, like you, it starts to build.
yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna come back to this point about what your plans are to get it to build, because I think because that's kind of how we at the end towards the end of the podcast, that's what we always talk about, what your plans are, and then we're gonna check back and see on how things are getting on. But I also think when you were talking about like not having leads or whatever it might be, the thing that's really getting at you, I think it's all people need to realize as well that, like that's like and everyone has those bad moments. Like, when people don't get leads, so many people have
Mm,
that. I think once you realize that, like, that's just part of it, it then you stop thinking to yourself, like, oh, I'm not, because when I used to not have a client, I used to think I was doing something wrong. And because I was doing something wrong, I then didn't want to do it because I was like, I'm doing it wrong, I'm bad at this. But then when you realize like, no, that's just the stage that you go through, it's like, oh, I just got to get through it then. And then it's so much easier.
Yeah, exactly. It's trusting the process, isn't it? Because you can keep chopping it and changing it, and then there's no consistency, and it nothing comes off the back of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good point. And sometimes you need, like you said, sometimes you need those people, don't you, just to be like, keep doing what you're doing. It's going to work eventually.
Hmm.
And I've had when I was employed as a broker before, plenty of times. Then I was there were stages where I'd maybe have a short amount of leads. But the big benefit, which was a big difference at the time, is I was working for quite a big estate agency in the area. So they had, in a sense, like the monopoly of that area.
Yeah.
So we used to get a lot come through. So the biggest transition was I went to employed, which was great because I learned how to do mortgages. But what I didn't learn was how to generate your own leads. And that's the biggest, like, that is by far the biggest thing, the biggest learn and the biggest, biggest learning curve that I've had since starting.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that I think what happens is the transition happens and then you realize, oh, you've got to get your like it doesn't matter how good of a like how good you are at it. Like you've got to actually just find people to speak to and show them how good you are. I think that's when
Yeah,
the
yeah, exactly. I think that's absolutely spot on. It's like I actually started with like a huge amount of confidence because the first year writing mortgages, so we were under a certain network at the time, and was just working obviously extra hard, extra long hours, like really driven, getting loads of leads coming through, wanting to see as many as I could.
Mhm.
Hit top 10 in the country at that point. And I was like, right, I need to do this. I need to do this on my own. Like I've got all the tools now.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until then, like once I'd started on my own, it was like reality hit. No, you do need like you need to do those initial parts of creating connections with other estate agents, creating connections with like accountants, solicitors, and then building like your own social media profile as well,
Mhm.
which I've always shied away from as like something that I would never ever do before.
Really? Okay.
Whereas now, yeah, whereas now it's like a part of life. Like any time before, it would be very rare that I'd post a single photo or a video.
Well, that was the same as me actually.
So
Say it. That was the exact same as me.
yeah,
Yeah. I would never have filmed a video. I remember the first time I sat down to film the first ever podcast episode I did. Like I was not it wasn't even interviewing anybody. It wasn't live. Like I just had my camera there and I could just sit there and video. I was like shaking whilst I was recording it. I was so nervous. Um
it's
yeah.
tough. It's tough, isn't it? It's quite humbling actually because you think, right, I've been talking for maybe 20 years now. Surely it's pretty easy to do. And then as soon as you put that camera on and you see the lens, it's like you freeze.
Yeah, yeah. But it's again, it's one of those things that you just like. It's not. It's like when it comes to posting on social media, it's just like it's part of the process. Is that at the start you're not going to be very good, and it's going to be awkward in front of the camera. But then you do it more, and you get more comfortable. Then your content gets better, and then it's just like it's just part of the process of it. I think that's
Yeah,
what helped
exactly.
me when I was sat down doing my podcast. I was like, well, I'm going to be nervous for a bit. That's just how everyone says they feel. And then once I kind of felt that, I was like, so I just got to get through it, and then I did.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'll be honest, I've followed your stuff for a while. I've always seen it come through and noticed the improvement, definitely.
Have
Like
you?
even just like small even just small things like I don't know the right way to describe it, but as you're talking, like the zoom changes as you're speaking, and then like you've got obviously the captions, but they're um just like the little
Yeah, a
extra
little.
bits
Yeah, yeah.
where if you're at a place where you can't have the sound on, just those small little things, adding those little bits make a real big difference.
Yeah, again, it comes back to what you're saying that Ash talked about with the consistency, but also the consistent small little changes over time do make big differences. Like me adding the captions and like the effects and things like that. When you put them all together, it makes the video much better. Um,
Yeah, exactly. And you've got a fancy microphone there by the looks of it as well.
yeah, well, it's not actually that fancy. I just did a quick little YouTube video search. I thought if I'm gonna have a podcast
Yeah,
and put it on Spotify, like at least it should kind of sound good.
no, that's
Um,
good. It's good.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good then. Um, so so you you were at HSBC and you not HSBC nationwide, and then you decided to be a specialist. So then that I'm going to kind of fast forward to then where you are now with starting everything. So how are you finding like having your own like being your own mortgage advisor firm?
Um, challenging but exciting in both ways, like massively challenging in the sense it's like, right, how do I? So I'll research something, for example, like if I go back at right at the start, someone that I spoke to talked about Facebook ads, and I was like, okay, didn't even know it was a thing. Not gonna lie. And then I started learning about it. Took hours learning about it. I remember being in bed, like watching like YouTube video after video, trying to learn as much as I could. And
Mhm.
that's a challenge when you initially like do your first ad, because I said to myself, right, I need to keep it really like small budget because it's like a test in a sense. I don't want to go too mad like
Yeah,
on the
yeah, yeah.
first thing. So I created this beautiful home buyer guide, which I was thinking, right, every single person's going to look at it and want to click on this. So I got it all set up, did it through Canva, Canva free at the time because I hadn't even like I was too tight on myself to purchase Canva Pro. Was doing all the initial bits, created the guide, went through it on the Facebook ad, following the YouTube video on the other screen, hit send. I was like, right, now I'm gonna have so much work to do. It's gonna be a nightmare. And obviously, what happens is you do get a few come through. So I had like a couple pop up, just what I needed, like some emails, which was perfect. And then in time, it maybe like 2 or 3 weeks had passed, and I was like, okay, this is cool. Maybe I should look to stop the ad. I looked at it and I'd spent like 4 times the amount than I thought I had.
No, really.
Like, yeah. So I thought I put like a limit on there and I hadn't. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like spent way too much more than I thought I spent. So just like those little learns and challenges are huge that you have to go
Yeah.
through when you start. One of those I'll probably never do again.
Yeah, I mean, well, but I think that and it's that you've learned a lesson there, but also when you were just spending the money on the ads, like if your ad did flop and not get anybody, that would have taught you anything. That would have taught you some stuff about marketing that you would have been able to apply to all these different stuff. So it would have like helped you. And I do think that they're like learning you can sit there and you can learn so much online about it, but then like when you actually go and do it, you learn a lot more as well because then you make mistakes, but you learn from them. I had a massive scare the other day because I was like setting up some LinkedIn ads. I remember like I was setting up LinkedIn ads months and months and months ago when I was first learning the platform. And I opened up LinkedIn ads and I hadn't been on there for like 4 months. And I was like, oh my God, I've got an ad running. But I hadn't had an ad running. It was like the campaign
Oh,
was
that's a bit
enabled, but the ad
scary.
itself was paused. But I thought I'd just been running an ad on LinkedIn for like 6 months. And that really nearly,
Yeah.
that did
Oh, that'd
scare
be
me because
bad.
LinkedIn's expensive as well. So I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, so I've definitely like learned the hard way with paid ads and stuff. And it's now I'm at that stage of development where so if I'm just focusing on the marketing point for now, like ads done, but then it's what's next because what I've been learning from my reading and what you know as well is it's not just it's like you got to warm them up a little bit more than just like do that and then go straight for the kill. So
mhm.
now I'm in that learning stage where it's like how do you create some email campaigns and some like funnels so that it's eventually going to get to the point where you're not a stranger to that person.
Yeah.
Um, and pre-framing is so important. Like when I used to work at the estate agents, after building a little bit of relationship and a bit of confidence in the people that worked at the estate agents, they'd
Mhm.
always say, "Oh my God, you need to speak to Samuel. Like he's excellent mortgage advisor. You definitely need to speak to him." And that customer comes to me already positioned in that point where it's like, "Well, this is the guy we need to speak to for our mortgage."
Yeah.
So having that type of customer versus someone who's just seen a home buyer guide from some random guy, it's like completely different. So
Yeah.
I'm in that stage where I'm learning how to make this person over here, like in a sense, pre-frame them myself through content,
Well, but that's the
and
exact right
then
approach. Like the taking the cold traffic and warming them up to be like a hot referral lead. That's like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
literally
that's the
wrote a post
dream.
about it today.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, it's like scheduled for next week, but I was literally writing one about, and that's like the terminology I used. Um,
It's
taking
true.
someone
It's
cold
good.
into
I
the
mean,
room.
that's just something that I think, because any in a sense, obviously it depends on the business and qualifications and things, but in a sense, anyone can start a business. But what most people don't know is the biggest thing is sales and marketing. It's so like even though we're a mortgage advisor, the biggest thing isn't the mortgages. Again, the biggest thing is like, can you sell to someone and can you market it? The mortgages, in a sense, is almost like if you've got the skill set for that, then brilliant, we can then implement that. But
Hmm.
it's about getting in front of the people first and showing them why it's worth going
Yeah,
with
yeah,
you.
yeah. I agree. I think marketing and sales is the biggest part. So with your so like kind of like getting to the end now, but with you said before like so with your where you're going with the marketing, where are you going with like the business in general? What are your goals kind of moving forward? Do you have any goals in place?
Yes, I do. Yeah, yeah. So, I created a like a 5 year plan. This is where I want to be in kind of like 5 years.
Cool.
And then I went back down to 1 year. So what would that look like if I was to hit my goals in 1 year?
Yeah.
And then quarter, if I was to look at it on a quarterly basis,
Okay.
on a monthly basis, weekly basis, and then like every day, what's my goal for the day?
Nice.
I think I've done that mainly off where I used to work. We used to have monthly targets, weekly targets, quarterly targets, yearly targets. So
Yeah.
I suppose I've had that drilled into me a little bit. In a sense, it's been beneficial when starting a
Hmm.
business because so you need to know if you're doing well or not. So you need to know whether to like crack the whip or give yourself a pat on the back. So
Yeah, yeah.
um, for me, my starting at the start, my 5 year goal would be to have a flourished company which is like bespoke for a certain area. So hoping
Yeah.
that it's like law professionals. So anyone that's a lawyer, barrister, or solicitor, initially their head just goes straight to SJR mortgages, and they were like, "This is where we need to go."
Okay. Cool. Cool.
Okay. To have a number of advisors working for me, but not a huge amount. So I want it to be like a tight knit group, maybe three or four mortgage
Okay.
advisors, and obviously some admins to manage all of that. So in a sense, like an established business that's turning over good money, so it's profitable.
Hmm.
But more importantly, it's got like that bespoke nature to it, and the people that are working for me have that skill set
Yeah.
around
Cool.
that.
Cool. And then what about
One
in
year,
6 months' time? Oh,
6 months from now, I would love to be in the position where the majority of my leads are in that sector. So at the moment, I'm getting excellent leads from different avenues, but they're not in the sector that I want to focus on. So in 6 months, if I've got like let's say 10 appointments in the diary for the week, those if those 10 were all the types of clients that I wanted, that's my 6 month goal that I'd
hmm.
want it to be.
Hmm. Okay. Cool. Um,
So
so
yeah, it'd be interesting to know if that happens.
yeah, so the plan is then in about 6 months' time, I'll come back and I'll say, what are your leads looking like? Are they coming from the law side of things?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'll either have my tail between my legs or I'll be sitting there proud and telling you, yeah, I've got another one on the phone now.
Uh, all right. Well, that kind of wraps up the episode. But thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Do you have anything else you
Yeah, no problem.
wanted to chat about? Where can people find you, hear about you?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so follow me on LinkedIn. Samuel Roy is my name, and then SJR Mortgages is the page. So that's where I post my content, and anyone can get to know anything about mortgages on there. And yeah, Lewis, really appreciate your time,
No, no,
and
it's okay.
look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Yeah, yeah. Likewise. Thank you very much.